Yes. Yeah. Hey everyone. So today I'm going to talk about. Sorry, share screen. Today I'm going to talk about building applications with Angular and ASP NET Core. Uh, so today I will guide you how to create web applications by using an Angular on front end that connects to an ASP.NET Core on backend. This talk will be like some brief guide for developers who want to start how to create web applications or getting new knowledge about using a combination of ASP.NET Core 2.1 and Angular 6. So I'm going to do this in English because it's just a lot smoother that way for such a global .NET conference. But if you want to ask me any questions in Russian, because I'm from Russia, ребята, всем привет. So feel free to ask and I will be happy to discuss your questions. So, all right, let's get started. So this is agenda for today's talk. We will start with checking out the prerequisites, tools, and requirements for preparing of the environment. Moreover, you will learn how to create web applications with and without using .NET Core single-page application templates in Visual Studio 2017. And we will also look at the way how you can do the same by .NET CLI command. First, we will look my demo project and we will analyze a structure of solution and what I have chosen to develop it. And by the end of the session, we will talk a bit about upgrading an Angular app to the 6th version. Okay. So I want to pay your attention in a few moments about prerequisites. So if you have already built Angular applications, it's great. Because we will talk today about Angular 6 and it will be nice to know basics of Angular 2 or higher. The next moment, it is knowledge about building apps using ASP.NET Core 2. Preferably, it applies to building APIs. And in addition, I want to mention about IDE, which you can use to build such applications. So Visual Studio 2017 supports both of them from version 15.3 and higher. Also, you can use Visual Studio for Mac, which fully supports as well. You can also develop your application using Visual Studio Code or JetBrains Rider, and etc. I will use Visual Studio 2017 to write backend and Visual Studio Code for front-end part. That doesn't not mean that you should use the same, so feel free to use whichever you prefer. That's it. Okay, now let's prepare our environment. As I mentioned before, I'm using Visual Studio 2017 to write backend. So we should install ASP.NET Core 2. In case if you haven't it, you should go to Microsoft official website and download and install it. So to write TypeScript code, I will use Visual Studio Code. Everything of that I already have on my machine. So awesome. Firstly, we need to make sure that we have installed Node.js 8+ version and npm package manager on our machine to run our Angular application. You can download this old package from official websites as well. And the next phase is install an Angular CLI, which allows to create a new application, generate components, route services, and so on. So you can also debug your application using ngserv command. To install Angular application on global level, you just need to type commands, npm command like that. Npm install global level Angular CLI. That's it. So that allows to use CLI commands anywhere on our machine. By the way, there is a visual representation of Angular CLI, which is named as Angular console. It means that we can do everything the Angular CLI can do. You can create projects, interact with your editor, run generators, commands, install extensions without ever touching the terminal. You can even run every Angular CLI command via Angular console, and that without remembering all the flags, paths, names, and etc. So you can download an Angular console from official website. So it is angularconsole.com, and you should only choose a more suitable version of your operation system to download Mac, Windows, Linux, and that's pretty straightforward steps to install. So that's it. Okay. Now let's look how to create an Angular application with and without using .NET Core single-page application templates using Visual Studio 2017. There is one way to create an Angular application with .NET Core. So let's start to talk about the first approach. Here is a create a .NET Core application API project where we'll not use an Angular template because it will be on the next step with adding an Angular 6 application to an API project using Angular console. So on the slide you can see that there are two tabs with complete .NET Core API project without client app, and the next step it is creating an Angular client application using Angular console. So now we should it is create a .NET Core API project. Let me switch to Visual Studio. Okay, here we go. So we should create new project. So you should select .NET Core, ASP NET Core web application, put some name for your application, and press OK. So in the next window, you should select in our approach an API empty template for creating an ASP NET Core application. Okay. So now we need to create a client application, and there are two ways how we can do that. We can add our Angular application to our project through Angular CLI. To create an Angular 6 based app, you should navigate to our ASP.NET Core project folder, where we have our CS project file is present, and run the command which is creating a new client application for us. So let me show you. Okay, so you should type ng client tab. So this command will create an Angular 6 application within our API project. But if you want, as I mentioned before, do not remember all these CLI commands, and you prefer graphical user interface, then you should to test a new tool, Angular console. So if you have installed Angular console on your machine, then you can create Angular application using that. So let's try it. I'm going to create an Angular application using Angular console. So I have already installed this. You can either create a new Angular application, or you can import an existing application which is created before. So creating a new application is pretty straightforward, and all you need it is select path of your project, provide workspace name. It's let it be users source repos and our web application 10. Okay, and now we should provide client app name for our workspace, and we should choose the schematics. Okay, good. But you can ask me what is Angular workspace? An Angular workspace, it is a directory which is generated via Angular CLI commands and able to contain multiple projects, libraries that derive the configuration. Schematics, it is a workflow tool, or it is a part of Angular Dev Kit, which lets us transform, generate, or update your project and development within our development workflow. Angular CLI uses schematics under the hood in order to perform some jobs inside. And the schematics provide an ability to configure the options of schematics package in the root level of our workspace. So now I should only hit on the create button, and you will find that Angular console running the Angular CLI client command for you to create the workspace and scaffolding your application. Angular CLI has an integrated terminal window, so when you compose and execute your commands visually, you will see all your change reflected in the inline terminal output in real time. Create an application takes approximately 4-5 minutes of your time. I won't do that right now because I already have my client's application Angular workspace for today's talk, which has been created by me before. So let me show how you can also build, serve, and test your application. So I have client's application for my .NET Conf test application. Now I will select you, and I have here 4 options: serve, test, build, and generate component. So let's build our client's application. Here you can see that we can choose some important fields. It prompts when you can choose ahead of time compilation option or watch option. You can select also the build configuration. It can be default or production. Based on your selected options, the comment will change accordingly. So I selected all these options, and now let's run. Okay, so now our Angular application is building, and we should to wait some seconds, I hope. And also you can see that here we have, as I mentioned before, inline terminal, where we can see all building history, which is running in real time. So building in progress. All 5 modules. More. Okay, good. Now, once the build successfully, you can also run the application. Now you can serve your application, and I'm clicking on run. And now I have access to the Angular Live development server by the next URL, localhost. So let me go to the next URL. So our application is complete and ready to test. So also the next important thing that is you can also run unit tests. It is really important and you can check your client test from Angular console as well. In result, Angular console will run a browser where you're able to see all your test results and see what test passed or failed. So as you see, we have one failed test because it's expected equal to welcome to the .NET conference, but it should contain welcome to client hub. So test is working. Okay. But if you remember, our task is to run our Angular application with .NET Core. So for this, we need to add some code within startup class, and we should to switch on Visual Studio 2017. The SPA template uses Angular application and on Angular client side and ASP NET Core on backend. So it uses package Microsoft ASP NET Core SPA services as a middleware to provide different configurable options for your application, such as hot model replacement, routing helper, and so on. So let's find out how to implement ASP NET Core SPA template features in the same app. So to do that, we should register SPA services that can provide static files. So let me switch on my .NET Conf test application because I already have here client app, which was created by me by Angular console. So let me open Startup class. And here I should provide adding a SPA static files. Services, and it. Serial path client up. List. Okay, good. So here is published resources will be copied to the dist folder inside the client hub folder. Next, we need to add SPA middleware to the pipeline. We can do that inside the configure method. And so the configure method should contain the next. I will copy the required code fragments from my snippets. Do not waste my session time by typing all this code. So, now we need also to add script to package JSON, which will start serving your client's application. Now, let me switch on package JSON. And here you should add script section. And type ng serve comment. Okay. Now we should provide our script name for .NET CLI server, and thereby by adding the next piece of code. So if our environment is in development, we should add SPA and use Angular CLI server and npm script should run script start. Okay, so by the way, we make sure that the property launch URL is not present in our launch settings JSON file, because we should run our client-side application and do not use a API action method. So should delete it or comment as you want. So it is a required configuration for running Angular code with .NET Core. So now we can test our application. Let me run our application using .NET CLI command. Restore is completed. Okay, and now we can run our application. So now our application is listing on localhost 5,000. We have some problem in scripts, really. Oh, sorry. I have lost a most important part, that the script is named start. Yes. A little bit more time to wait. Okay, we're ready to check. Okay, so our Angular application is now running with .NET Core. Awesome. So let's extend this application and call the values control API from Angular application. To do that, you should open our app component, and I will use for that already Visual Studio Code. And here, let me open now. Okay, let me open now Visual Studio Code. Okay, first we need add import of HTTP client to our component. So we should HTTP client from Angular. No. From Angular common HTTP. So and then we should add HTTP GET request to our values controller in API. So let me copy of that. Do not waste our time. So here I have a string array with values, and here I have HTTP GET method to get values from our API, and then I can to set this result to my values string array. Okay. Also, next to the next step, it is import of our HTTP client module to our app module. HTTP and add this module to import for our app model. So finally, we should add some HTML to show all our values on the page. So we will have some HTML. It should looks like our values and list of our values here. So now we are ready to test. We can see that our .NET clear command is rendering our search sources, and we can see our values on the screen. Okay, now we see all these values which return from API. Good. Now, so it is next part. We now created an application without a SPA and Angular application template. So now in the second approach, we will use this SPA template, and we should create now a new project, but we should only choose Angular template on the next step here. So in the result, Visual Studio will create a complete, well-structured application for you without extra steps like we did in the first approach. So you already can see that we have already client app application, client app folder in our application, and also you can notice that we haven't some views folder. And it is no longer there because we don't need that views folder, because we are using client hub as client hub template. So that's it. We just created an Angular 6 application with .NET Core, pretty straightforward, no problems. Now let me show you how to create the same using .NET CLI command. We can scaffold a new project using also .NET new Angular command, and create and scaffold everything that you need for your Angular application with .NET Core. All of you need it is type your command .NET new Angular .NET Conf app, let it be X. So where we can see some processing of creating our project, and here go. We have this already complete application. Now let me going to this folder with our application .NET Conf app X and run Visual Studio Code. So we see the same well-structured application with client hub, with controllers. Here some other name for controller, simple data controller, but the same of from the structure and other things. Everything is the same. It's really simple and easy to start and use .NET CLI command. Now let me switch on the next part of our demo. In this module, I will guide you through my Build Guide web application. In addition, I would recommend you to get the source code from my GitHub, which you can download or fork. Here you can also clone or load what you prefer. The latest change already are present on GitHub. So this beer application provides you information about beers from around the world. It's using a third-party BeerDB API to get necessary data. This application has been created using Visual Studio.NET Core single-page application template based on Angular. If you want to run this application locally on your machine, you should first get a private key to access to BeerDB API. But if you want to skip these steps with registering a private key, you can open the public version of my application, which is hosting on Azure and available by this URL. So Beer Guide, Azure Websites.net. So welcome to Beer Guide. I have published my application to Azure Cloud using a pay-as-you-go subscription. It is a preview subscription which allows you pay only what you use in fact. You can cancel any subscription. You can edit and billing error service to notify you when price has been changed. So it will help you monitor and manage billing activity. It's really useful and flexible pricing plan. So now let me show what we have in my demo in the sources. So let me open my application. So I have created a solution with a few layers, as you can see. As we are working on a layer architecture, our project must be independent between all the layers. I can say that the controller layers and data access layers must be independent. If we make it tightly coupled, any change related to the data access layer can change the controller code. Hence, the repository is used to create an abstraction layer between the data access layer and business logic layer of an application. So implementing these patterns can help insulate your application from the change in the data store and can facilitate automated unit testing or test-driven development methodology. So now we will check each of these all layers one by one in detail. So the first layer, it is Beer App Web Application Project. This layer is mainly used to handle requests from which are coming from the client. The web layer mainly contains the controller classes. It is beer controller, client part, as we had created before using Angular console. So and some layout page to share my HTML on page. So beer controller is derived from MVC controller, where we have some several main actions. You can see that I have some routings which are working for various query strings, and so now let's look on startup class. All configuration contains in startup class. As you know, the startup class configures services and the application request pipeline. Both the host and app services are then available and configure and throw out the application. The configure services method is called by the web host before the configure method to configure the application services. Now let's look on our BreweryDB settings. It is my class to store and keep my settings to access to BreweryDB API. When you are working with web applications, you can kind of get hooked to the ease of the dependency injection and some way to keep settings in a JSON and access to the through DI. So I'm here. I use the options pattern, which uses classes to represent groups of related things. When configuration settings are isolated by scenario into separate classes, the application adheres to two important software engineering principles. And an options class must be on a non-abstract and with public parameterless constructor. So the following class, BreweryDB settings, has two properties. API URL and API secret key. As you see, I injected this settings class and then added it to scope of my application to get it everywhere where I will want. Now you can see how I'm using these settings. So it's my beer service where I'm trying to get access to BreweryDB API, and here I have injected my BreweryDB settings via constructor, and now I can get access to the settings anywhere, and I'm using here to get access to API secret key. Okay, now let's talk a bit about HTTP client. HTTP client got a whole new implementation based on .NET sockets and a span, generic span class. It also got a new factory, which is a new factory class which is assists in creating pre-configured instances that plays nicely with dependency injection. So I'm using here BreweryDB client, which is HTTP typed client, and you can desire pre-configuration for your HTTP client inside a custom class, as I have used here in my case. So it is BreweryDB client has HTTP client public property, read-only property. So and injected HTTP client via construction. So this custom class can be registered as typed client, and later when we need it, this class, it can be injected via the calling class constructor. Let's switch on beer service, and here you can also see that I have injected BreweryDB client via constructor for beer service. So I prefer typed client for following the reasons. The first, it is a flexible approach compared to named clients. You can no longer have to deal with strings like in named clients, and you can encapsulate the HTTP calls and all logic dealing with that endpoint. So now the second layer, it is beer up business logic layer. Here you can see just a pair of interface and its implementation, beer manager and iBeer manager. It just contains some logic which allow me to manage my application behavior, which is working, which depends on client requests and during some filtering, sorting, searching, and so on. Also, as you see, I have some entities. All entities were extracted to the separate beer up entities project. So here I have all these modules, and it is also is is good to have all your models in the separate project. Now, beer app services, which is I have already talked about it, is using to communicate with our BreweryDB API. Beer service is the main implementation of this layer with our interface. As you can see here, I'm using query helpers. Let's talk about in a bit about query helpers. You maybe noticed that creating a query string in code can lead to errors, as you have to deal with strings, ampersand and question marks, and so on. Fortunately, ASP.NET Core has a static class, query helpers, which is has a function add query string, offers a neat way to build your query string in ASP.NET Core. So the add query string has two parameters. It is one for creating query string for a single parameter, and another for multiple your parameters. You don't have deal to with ampersand, question marks while you are composing your query. Specifically for some queries where we have a lot of parameters. So, and yes, of course, we have beer app below tests project where we have all our unit tests to cover our logic. So, okay, good. Now, let me switch on my client side of my project, and I want to show a bit about client-side part. So let's look at what we have in client application, which has been updated by me to the 6th version. It is 6.0.9 version, which is using now for my application. The 6th version of Angular CLI has been published with a lot of improvements and changed. So I will try to discuss a few of them. So architecture of initialized Angular CLI project has been changed, and mostly under the hood. And since the releasing of Angular 6 version release candidate 2. So the first thing, it is Angular JSON file. You can notice that Angular JSON, most likely that all we have encountered the Angular CLI JSON file generating a project using Angular CLI. It is well known that this file is used as for configuration schema for the whole project and manipulated by the CLI, including managing of different improvements, environments, testing, proxy, third-party resources, and so on. Also, as you might have noticed, the old configuration file, Angular CLI JSON, was replaced by a new one. So, and now we have Angular JSON file with some change inside, and the whole configuration now is contained in this file. Now, let me switch on beer service. I want to pay your attention on a new recommended way how to register a provider directly inside your services. So in the injectable provider, using now a new provider in attribute, it accepts root as a value or any model of your application. So, and when you use root, your injectable service will be registered as a singleton in the application, and you don't need to add it to providers for the root model. Similarly, if you use providing in, for example, users model, the injectable is registered as a provider of the users model without adding it to providers of this model. And the new way has been introduced to have a better tree shaking in the application. Currently, a service added to the providers of a model will end up in the final bundle. and ever if it's not used in the application, which is a bit sad. But if you use lazy loading, you can fall in a bunch of traps or end up with the service bundling in the wrong place. It shouldn't happen often in applications. If you write a service and you usually use it, but third-party models sometimes offer services that you don't use, and you end up with a big bundle of useless. So it will be especially useful for library developers, but is now recommended way to register an injectable ever for application developers. So the new CLI will even scaffold service with provided in root by default now. So when you are creating your application, your application, it will be add by default. Now let me show my beers component. Angular 6 uses now RxJS 6 version internally and requires you to update your application also. So, and RxJS 6 has been changed, and now we have the way how to should import some things. So RxJS on higher version introduces two important changes compared in the to RxJS of previous version. It is different internal structure, and that requires you to change your import statements. So you can see that I have previously import of map operator using this way, and now using RxJS 6 version, I should just type map operator and provide also all other operators what I need, and just to type RxJS/operators, and that's it. So also RxJS introduced the pipe operators and the pipe as a method to change your operators and the old way of chaining already then will not work, and additionally some operators were renamed, and so pipes takes in your data as an input and transforms it to the desired output. So, and if there are, yes, I'm wrapping up. Okay, so let me show only my custom order pipe, which I have created for my project. It is ordered by pipe, and I have used this pipe to order my beers by alcohol content. So I can sort by alphabetical or alcohol content. It is my order by pipe. Okay, so now let me switch back to my presentation, and with the release of Angular, we have some latest we have some way to get the latest of this version by the some ways. So I'm going to talk about in a bit about upgrading your Angular application to the 6th version. So let's get right to it. If you are looking to use Angular 6 application version, there are a few steps you will need to complete to get over there, where we can take advantage of a new ng update tool. To update Angular application to the latest version, you should switch to your client's application directory and run ng update all command. This will update the package JSON, and then you need to run npm install. If you get a message about some Angular CLI should update it, you can update it by running ng update Angular CLI. You may now see some vulnerabilities in your npm package, and to fix them, you should run command npm audit fix. You may have to run this several times as some of the fixes introduce new vulnerabilities. And when you will run your application and everything during update was okay, then application will be running as before. So if you want to update your Angular application from any version starts from 2 plus to later, you should go to update Angular IO website, and here you can choose your version of Angular, and here is the final version what you want to upgrade. So it's making it easy for developers to stay up to date with the latest releases, and extremely important to us. So let us know what you think and what you can update your application. So thank you for your attention. I hope that you have found some useful information from this session, and I will be glad to hear your questions in the Twitter or right now. So thank you. Okay, there are some benefits in this way to use your client application, which is separately contains from your backend. It is a flexible way to keep your change and to keep your application is run in a more flexible way, because you can, for example, you can have a team where you can have some backend developers and front-end developers, and it is really a flexible way to work on your application within your team. And I have such experience where we can to work in the same application on front-end part and back-end part, and it's really good and easy to work on both sides of front-end and back-end. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Bye bye.